to you again. A few months ago, I've got 4 points. I'll make them very quickly. A few months ago, I spoke to you about stop and search and how I think it's unfair on people. And what I will say is if you're a black child, you are more likely to be a victim of black-on-black crime.
Yes.
Black-on-black crime is the result of drugs, okay? That's the problem. And if you're a black person, because you're born black and you live in a poor community, you're more likely to be selling drugs. If you're a white person, you're more likely to go to a good university, be a rich banker and be buying the drugs. You're more likely to be someone who's moved to a gentrified area and be, a creative, potentially using drugs. But white people are not being stopped and searched. They're not being prosecuted for using the drugs that black people may be more likely to sell because of where they come from. And this is a result of racial injustice.
Sarah, I cannot disagree with a word of that.
Exactly.
I can't disagree with a word of that, although the police and the law take the dealing of drugs to be much, much more serious than the personal purchase and consumption of them.
Yeah, but it's unjust because if you're a black person, you're more likely to end up being on the side of selling than a white person who's more likely to be on the end of buying. So stop and search needs to look at both sides of the argument, because if white people, I'm not saying it's only white people who use drugs, but I think that there's racial prejudice there. Number two.
Well, it's not racial prejudice. It's Sarah, isn't it circumstance?
Circumstance.
Yeah. It's not racial prejudice. It's circumstance, and the police have a priority in stopping the dealing of drugs.
I'll move on to the next point. We know that a lot of black and ethnic people are key workers, and a lot of key workers work unsociable hours. As a result of that, they're busy working night shifts. They may not know what their children are doing in the evening. And this is part of the problem that makes it difficult for people to parent. Number three.
I'm going to stop you there, Sarah. Isn't a lack of fathers an even bigger problem?
Yes, it is a very big problem. And the black community do need to address that 100%. Number three.
Go on.
Taxpayers have been paying compensation to slave owners who were pledged £20 million in 1833 as compensation and reimbursement for the loss of their slaves. So my tax money has been going towards paying this because it's taken the British government years to pay off. Where is the compensation to me? Where is the compensation to the black community? Why have I been compensating black slave owners when slaves...
Well, I don't know anything about that, Sarah, and I'll check that out after the show. But what I do know is, that one of the big pitches from the Black Lives Movement and Black Lives Matters is reparations for historical injustices. If we go down that route, Sarah, we will bitterly divide our communities even more.
I think that it's not about dividing communities, but I think that if you look at life as a race, some people they're starting the race 5 or 6 or 7 steps behind others, and then there are multiple hurdles.
But that's the same for class. That's the same for class and wealth, and there are many factors here, Sarah.
However, black people have been enslaved for 500 years, and this also goes back to colonialism. The British Empire and the Commonwealth be abolished 50 years ago.
Sarah, we cannot go into a world where we regret what was done 400 years ago. If we do that, we'll never make any progress and we'll never heal society.
However, things are still going on today. There is still racial prejudice today going on. When I was in university, my professor asked me if English language was my first language and told me that I needed to go to English support classes for international students who'd come from Beijing. Do I sound like someone where English is not my first language? These are things that black people have to suffer in this country. And I went to a very good university. Well,
I tell you what, Sarah, I'm pretty sure about one thing. That equality of opportunity is better in this country than virtually every other country in the world.
I'm not saying that the UK is not a country that stands for equality, but what I'm saying is that there are still a lot of problems that need to be addressed, and people think things like that.
But you
might not see the things that
But Sarah, is going out and defacing the cenotaph the way to do that?
I do not agree with violence. I do not agree with defamation of buildings, but some people are not able to express themselves in the way that other people have been taught to express themselves. So everyone's version of their expression of pain will be different.
It's not good enough. Sarah, we've had a very, very long chat. I thank you. You've made some very, very interesting points. Second time Sarah's called, some interesting thoughts there.